Hi, welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to do a very quick video looking at the swirl flaps. What are swirl flaps? Well, this is an inlet manifold. This is the one that was fitted to my car. Pre-facelift Freelander 2s had the swirl flaps fitted, and they are these little black flap gate things inside the inlet manifold on 4 of the 8 inlet ports. Okay, so when Land Rover brought out the facelift model around late 2010, they stopped fitting the swirl flaps to the inlet manifold. Okay, so if your car has this thing, and there's also an arrow there that says with swirl, on mine it's pointing at with swirl, or it might point to without swirl, then if you've got the swirl flaps, you may want to consider removing them. Land Rover stopped fitting them to the later models because they were causing so many problems. These plastic flaps were breaking off and ending up lodged in around the inlet valves, or even worse, sort of getting drawn into the actual combustion chamber in the engine. Okay, so after a while they just stopped fitting them. Why did they fit them to the earlier models? Well, the thinking was that if you block off one of the 2 inlet ports to each cylinder, then the gas that's travelling through the remaining one speeds up, and as it enters the cylinder it sort of swirls around rather than sort of 2 dropping the inlet charge in. If you have one with it travelling twice as quick, it'll come in and it'll swirl round, and the fuel and the air will mix better, and you'll get better combustion and more power and better economy. Did it work? Not really. Okay, all that happened was there were a lot of issues and a lot of problems, and Land Rover had to, I'm guessing, fix a lot of these under warranty. So in the end they just scrapped the swirl flaps and stopped fitting them. If you've got an older pre-facelift Land Rover Freelander 2, you may want to consider removing your inlet manifold and taking out the swirl flaps, or easier than that is to just fit a different inlet manifold from a later model. That's exactly what I did recently when I was doing my glow plugs. So to change the glow plugs, you have to take the fuel filter off, inlet manifold off, and do the glow plugs. Did that, and then I fitted a new later inlet manifold and a new fuel filter, and you can see that this one here doesn't have that pneumatic thing there, so that's not actually driven by air pressure. This thing here, it's a vacuum controlled sort of diaphragm inside there, so there's a vacuum pipe which goes to a little solenoid valve, electrically operated solenoid valve, which sort of sits around kind of here. I'll show you where it is. It's this connector here, which is now disconnected on mine, and it sits about here. Okay, so mine's gone. It's in the boot of the car in a box of bits, and I've just left the connector disconnected. Doesn't throw up any error codes. In fact, I actually disconnected the swirl flap solenoid control valve before I did the glow plugs, just to see what would happen, and the results were quite surprising actually. The car, I feel, ran better. The MPG went from 30 up to about 36. The hesitance that has plagued this car for over 10 years seemed to disappear. It was like driving a new car again. So the swirl flaps, I believe, had been causing inefficient running and possibly limiting the performance as well. The swirl flaps open up at about 1800 RPM. Okay, so about 1800 RPM, the ECU tells the valve to cut the vacuum, and then this sort of bounces back. So they actually default to the open state. Okay, so unplugging that plug made the swirl flaps be open all the time. So what happens is, at low revs, they are closed off. Okay, so that sort of presses, and then you can see in there just about, it's a bit dark, but that closes, and then at about 1800 RPM that opens up and it allows air to flow through these ports as well. Okay, so the thinking is that above about 1800 RPM the gas is flowing so fast into the engine anyway that it mixes fine. But at low revs, the thinking was that it would run better if you only ran on 4 of the 8 ports. In reality, it didn't really make a lot of difference. I actually found my car ran better with all 8 ports permanently on. The MPG had gone up, the hesitance had gone, the car just seemed to run better. It seemed more powerful, and some people have reported sort of a reduction in low-end torque. I've not really noticed anything at all, really. It's definitely a lot better now without them. Okay, so if you are getting rid of your swirl flaps and you're refitting the same inlet manifold, so you take your current inlet manifold off and remove the swirl flaps and then refit it, you'll need to watch this video, okay? So I took the easy option of just fitting a later inlet manifold, and then this one's going to go in the bin. But I thought before I throw it in the bin, I'll pull all this apart and we'll see if we can remove the flaps. Now, I've heard from some people that it's really, really easy and it takes about 1 minute, and you prise off a clip and you pull out the rod and the flaps fall out. Super easy. Other people have said absolutely not. It took hours. They had to sort of chip away at these, breaking these off with cutters and pliers and trying to sort of snap those off and remove the flaps first to allow that rod to pull out. Okay, so I'm going to have a go at this. Before I throw this one away, I'm just going to see how easy it is. Is it 1 minute's work, or is it 3 hours work? Well, I'm hoping it's not 3 hours. It's cold and it's starting to get dark out here, so I don't intend to wrestle with this into the night. Okay, so I'm going to have a quick go at it, and we'll just see. I'll put the camera on the tripod here, and we'll just kind of see how easy it is. Maybe it just, I guess, depends how seized onto the rod. There's a sort of control rod that goes through there, how sort of stuck onto the rod those plastic flaps are. Okay, if there's a lot of carbon deposit and that, then they're probably not just going to fall off as the rod is removed. Okay, so I'm going to get some pliers. I'm going to remove this thing which looks like it probably just unclips. I'm going to pull that off, and yeah, apparently there's a metal clip you have to remove, which is probably this one. So somehow that comes off, and then see if I can pull that rod out. If it doesn't come out, I'm going to wrestle with the flaps and try and break them off. And yeah, I'll give it half an hour. If I haven't managed to remove them in half an hour, I'll give up, throw this away, and my advice to you would be to just fit the later inlet manifold. Okay, so I've got an assortment of cutting and pulling tools here. This one is going in the bin, so I can be quite rough with it and snap things off if necessary. First thing I want to do is see how to remove that. Right, what have we got here? How does that remove? It looks almost like it's sort of put in and turned, but I don't think it is. I think it's these clips here. Okay, so let's try and... Oops. Now, if you're removing your swirl flaps from a manifold that you're going to refit, you can destroy this because you won't need this afterwards. There There we go. That just unpops from there. Actually, that's a sort of like a ball joint. Okay, so that just unpops, and then I'm hoping this just, yeah, looks like it just prizes off. Okay, right, so that has come off. That's just a plastic cap. It's a nice big spring inside there. It's quite a soft spring. And then we've got a plunger with the ball socket thing there. And we've got then a rubber diaphragm. Okay, which doesn't stand off. No, it does come off. Right, so there's the rubber diaphragm. Okay. So that is that. That's still not removed down to the way in which it looks when you have the later ones. This piece is missing, so that must remove somehow. I'm sure that turns. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about that, but I think that is like a bayonet fit. That turns and comes off. What I want to do is, now that that is removed, I want to try and remove this metal clip here. Don't know which way that goes. Ah, there you go. Just slides out. Okay, so it's a sort of kind of like double horseshoe. The back bit there. Okay, so that steel clip just pulls out. And when that comes out, and what people say is you remove that clip and then the whole thing, look at that. Wow. Oh, that's a bit of a problem. I thought when that started coming out, I thought that was the rod coming out, but that's just a plastic end. There's the rod. Okay, there's the rod. Just see it down in there, like a brass rod. So now we have the moment of truth. Everybody says that you just grip the rod with pliers and pull it out. Let's see if mine comes out. No. Okay. So there we go. All those people who said it's 1 minute's work, pull out the rod. Bob's your uncle, and where you go. Sorry. It's not that easy in the real world. Right, so what do we have to do now? Let me just try and lever that bit and see if I can. Okay, now that's interesting. I just used some cutters and just levered that. I'm trying to get a better grip on it, and it actually did move a bit. Pliers don't seem to do it, but cutters. Definitely moved a bit, but is now not wanting to come out. So, can I use mole grips, I wonder? I need something that really grips it tight. No, it's just can't get in there. Do you know what? I'm sure that is moving. That is starting to move. Come on. Come on. I think that's moved a bit, but it really doesn't want to come out. The problem now is that yes, the flaps still rotate, and I can see actually a bit of shiny metal there where it's pulled the rod slightly. So the rod has shifted by about 5 millimeters. Okay, right, so if the rod can move 5 millimeters, then it's not going to move more than that. There we go. Now, cutters seem to actually work better. So pliers just can't really get a proper grip on it. Even with mole grips, I can't pull it. With cutters, you can just literally lever it a few millimeters at a time. There we go. Right, okay. It is coming out. Amazing. There we go. Because cutters allow you to actually really, it's only soft brass, okay, so you can really get a firm grip and then lever it. You might be able to just pull yours out with the pliers. There we go. It's out. It's a sort of square section brass rod. You can see all these little cut marks on it where I've levered it with the cutters. Okay, cutters are absolutely fine. It's only soft brass. But that's the trick, is just to lever it against this bit here. Don't worry if you break any of this off, that's really not going to cause an issue. I just levered it against this flat bit here. Okay. And it came out. So what about the flaps? They're still in there. Now, from what I've heard, you should be able to they should just fall out. Mine aren't though. They're all 4 of them are still in there. Right, let's see if I can get. Now that's a bit strange because with the rod removed, surely the flaps should just fall out, but they seem to be stuck in place. As you can see, it's pretty grimy inside there. Okay. Now, what's the trick then? I might have to sort of chop the flaps up in situ. Okay, right. So that is, they are only plastic. And there we go. Okay, so they have these little sort of bits that sort of sit in the side wall of the inlet, and that allows them to pivot. That's what's stopping them coming out. Okay, it's just a plastic bit here. So either sort of cut through that somehow, or what I did was just get the flap and just twist it, and it just broke in half. Let's try on this one. There we go. Okay, there's sort of bits of it coming out. And this one here. Now it is a bit brutal and a bit rough. Okay, and you need to be really sure you get all the bits out, alright? Don't go leaving bits in there. So after you've got them out, I would recommend sort of flushing this out with a hose or something, and having a good look into each inlet to make sure that you've got everything out. Right, okay. Well, that looks pretty good actually. I can't see anything left in there. There's a lot of bits coming out there. What you really want to do is count up. So for each flap, so that's what a flap looks like. I don't know if these are actually 2 halves of the same flap, but you get the idea. It's got these little plastic round pivoty bits on the side, okay? So you want to be seeing 8 of those. There's one, pretty destroyed, but there's another one. You don't want to be leaving any of those in the side walls. Okay, so that Probably, it doesn't matter if we sort of pair these up incorrectly, but we're just counting them. So there's another one. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, there we go. There we go. 4 flaps, 8 little round pegs, and then these bits are all just bits of other bits of flap. Now you could, if you wanted to, try and put it all back together like a jigsaw and just make sure you've got everything. I'm not going to bother doing that now, but you just want to be really sure that nothing is stuck inside there. Now some people do sort of say, but what about the holes on the sides where the rod went through? Well, these all join together, here at the throttle body. Okay, so it really doesn't matter if these sort of a little bit of air goes from one port to another. Okay, so they're all joined in. Inside here is a big hollow chamber. Okay, so that's not a problem. What you do want to make sure though is that this here is blocked up. All right. Okay, so there's no hole at the other end. There's no hole at the other. That's not. There's no opening there, but there is a hole here. Okay, so what you want to do is either just sort of fill that with some sealant or something, but better than that, I would refit that. Okay, and the reason for that is there's a rubber. Actually, I thought that was a rubber O-ring, but it's not a rubber O-ring, but it's a nice fit. Okay, so it's that sort of fits into there and blocks that hole up nicely. Okay, and you could then, if you wanted to, put that metal clip back on. Okay, so you could sort of glue that back in. Alright, so you glue that back in, or just refit this. Now, I have absolutely no idea how that went back on. How did it go? Yeah, so I guess it depends how much you've destroyed this in pulling that rod out. But this, I think, goes like so. Yeah. Okay. So that would, there we go, like that. Okay, so that goes back in, and then refit that like so. There we go. Just pushes in by hand, and that's there now. But that's not. It's held in there purely to block up that hole. All right. So it rotates, but it's not doing anything. There's nothing attached to it. There we go. That's it. Need to go and clean my hands now. Swirl flap removal wasn't actually that difficult. Quite quick and easy to do. Get your inlet manifold off, pull out the rod, break out the flaps, stick that bit back in, give it a clean up, check it thoroughly inside, and you're good to refit to the car. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.